Denzel Washington. The name that echoes through generations, the presence that defines excellence, the legend whose performances have become a standard in Hollywood. But what if behind the power, the discipline and the unmatched greatness lies a story that cuts far deeper than anyone expected? What if the journey to becoming one of the most respected actors in the world was filled with moments so painful, so uncertain, they almost changed everything? Because this is not just a story about fame. This is a story about purpose, about struggle, about the quiet battles that shape a man, long before the world ever sees his strength born in Mount Vernon, New York. He grew up in a household rooted in discipline. His father was a Pentecostal minister, and his mother ran a beauty parlor, two forces that shaped his understanding of structure and independence. But life at home was not without tension. And when his parents divorced during his teenage years, it became a turning point, one that could have easily sent him down a completely different path. Because at that time he found himself surrounded by influences that pulled him toward trouble. Friends who would later end up incarcerated, paths that led nowhere but consequences, and he has openly reflected on how easily his life could have mirrored theirs. How one decision, one moment, could have shifted everything in a direction he might never have escaped. But instead, his mother made a decision that would change his life forever, sending him to a private preparatory school, a move that felt harsh at the time, but ultimately saved him from a future he might not have survived. And that moment reveals one of the most heartbreaking truths about his story: that success is often built on sacrifices that are not understood until much later. Because at that time, he did not see opportunity. He saw separation. He saw distance. He saw a life he did not yet understand. But it was in that environment that discipline began to take root, shaping the foundation of the man he would become. He later attended Fordham University, where his path was anything but clear. He changed majors, explored different interests, and even took time off, unsure of what direction his life was meant to take. And it was during a summer camp program that something unexpected happened. He discovered acting not through ambition, but through accident, stepping into a role that would quietly ignite something inside him, something he could not ignore. And from that moment, the journey began. But like so many great stories, it did not begin with success. It began with uncertainty, with rejection, with the slow and often painful process of proving himself in an industry that offers no guarantees. Early in his career, he took on small roles, building experience, learning the craft, and slowly gaining recognition. His role in St. Elsewhere brought him into the spotlight, introducing audiences to his talent. But even then, the road was far from smooth, because with visibility came expectation, and with expectation came pressure. The kind of pressure that forces you to constantly prove that you belong, that your success is not temporary, that your presence is not a mistake. And as he transitioned into film, he faced the challenge of breaking stereotypes, of choosing roles that carried meaning rather than simply chasing fame. His performance in Glory earned him an Academy Award, a moment that should have marked pure triumph. But even in that success, there was an underlying weight, because recognition does not eliminate struggle. It simply changes its form as his career expanded with powerful performances in films like Malcolm X and Training Day, for which he won another Academy Award. He became more than an actor. He became a symbol of excellence, a figure who carried not just his own ambitions, but the expectations of an entire industry and community. And that is where the story takes a deeper turn, because while the world saw confidence, control, and mastery, there were internal battles that rarely made headlines: the pressure to remain at the top, the fear of making the wrong choices, the responsibility of representing something greater than himself, and perhaps most powerful of all, the constant reflection on the life he could have lived if circumstances had been slightly different. He has often spoken about faith, about purpose, about the belief that his life was guided by something greater. But faith does not erase doubt. It coexists with it. It challenges it. It forces you to confront moments where clarity is not immediate, and at times that weight can be overwhelming, especially in an industry that constantly demands more success, more relevance, more perfection. And as he reached his later years, the perspective began to shift. Success was no longer just about awards or box office numbers. It became about legacy, about meaning, about the impact of his choices both on screen and off. And that is where the heartbreak becomes more profound, because when you look back on a life filled with achievement, you also see the sacrifices, the moments missed, the relationships tested, the pressure endured, the quiet understanding that greatness often comes at a cost that cannot always be seen. And at 71, that reality carries a different kind of weight. It is not about slowing down. It is about understanding the full scope of the journey, the moments that shaped him, the decisions that defined him, the paths he avoided, and the ones he chose to walk, despite the uncertainty. And while the world continues to celebrate his legacy, there is a deeper narrative, one that speaks to resilience, but also to the emotional toll of constantly striving for excellence. Because the truth is, even the strongest individuals carry burdens that the world does not always see. Burdens of expectation, of responsibility, of knowing that every move is watched, every decision analyzed, every moment scrutinized, and yet through it all, he has maintained a sense of purpose, a commitment to his craft, a dedication to something greater than himself. And that is what makes his story so powerful and so deeply moving. Not because it is filled with tragedy in the traditional sense, but because it reveals the complexity of a life lived at the highest level, a life where success and struggle exist side by side, where triumph does not erase hardship, but instead exists alongside it as part of a larger narrative. And that is why his journey resonates on such a profound level, because it reminds us that behind every iconic figure is a human being, navigating challenges, making choices, facing doubts, and striving to find meaning in it all. And at 71, his story stands not just as a testament to success, but as a reflection of everything it took to achieve it. The discipline, the sacrifice, the faith, the resilience, and the quiet battles fought along the way. Battles that may never fully disappear, but instead become part of the foundation that supports everything he has built. And that is where the true emotion lies, not in what the world celebrates, but in what it often overlooks: the journey, the struggle, the moments of uncertainty that shape a life long before it becomes legendary. And even now, as he continues to inspire, to create, to influence, there is a sense that the story is still unfolding, that the lessons are still being learned, that the impact is still growing. And that is what makes it so compelling, because it is not just about what he has achieved, it is about what he represents. The idea that greatness is not a destination, but a continuous journey, one that requires strength, not just in moments of victory, but in moments of doubt, in moments of reflection, in moments where the weight of everything becomes impossible to ignore, and yet you keep moving forward, because that is who you are, and that is what defines you. And in that truth lies both the beauty and the heartbreak of a life lived at the highest level.